One of the more interesting and maybe you could say esoteric ideas I've come across that seems to be kind of a great attractor in my research, right? So if you think about in dynamical systems, when we have a landscape, the attractor is the thing you get pulled to, even if you start somewhere very different. And I find myself pulled to the ancient world and coming across very old ideas. And one of the prominent figures ends up being Pythagoras. And everybody knows Pythagoras from middle school. And they say, oh, well, he studied triangles. He studied geometry. And then the more you look at it, you realize that what he was actually interested in was music. He was interested in harmony, and he invented sort of a one-string guitar called the monochord. And he wanted to know, how do you set that thing up such that you get sort of a pleasing note out of it. So it's this very rich overlap between aesthetics and physics and mathematics. And really that was kind of the core of his research. That's why he was interested in triangles. And then you go a bit further and you realize the thing he was really interested in is something called the transmigration of souls. And that might be thought of in modern terms that maybe we are software. And maybe this thing that we call self, even what we might call consciousness, even the internal experience, essentially, might live, it sort of might be hanging on to this frame, but maybe it's more mobile than we think. And there's a lot of cultures throughout the world that have very similar ideas in terms of reincarnation, that we don't have a soul has us, as Bentov says. And maybe another way to think about it is that, in the computer science sense, that we are instances of a class, and that there's this other object that's more ephemeral, and maybe it's more mobile than we think, right? Neuroscience would suggest that our personality is just these weights, and it's just the structure of our brain. But when you listen to, say, like a 6-year-old singing like a really soulful song, that you see online, where do they get that? They seem wise beyond their years. They seem to have a character in them that would have taken longer to produce than the time they've had here. Another way to think about it is just the language itself that we have. It was downloaded into us. We haven't been alive long enough to have invented the words that we use. So somehow it's beyond us. Yet it's somehow, we're made out of that thing. That maybe it's the language that's alive. Maybe it's the culture that's alive. And, when we talk about the ghost in the machine, right? I've been thinking lately more that I'm a machine made out of ghosts. And that I carry copies of people in me that are no longer here. But how is that less real than me? I joke that I'm also a figment of my own imagination. And, sort of the evolution of self and soul, is that not the product of all our experiences and all the people we meet? And when those people leave an imprint on our hearts, it doesn't easily go away. I've been thinking about this a lot today. I lost my cat of 16 years, and she was a very special soul. And I've been thinking about, where does she live now? And I'd like to hope that she lives forever in me, and that I can leave an impact in the world that will also live forever. And like a hologram, that there's the whole inside the piece, and as long as we can each leave one little part of us into the world, we've left the whole thing.